And this episode of Dave Talks Ball is brought to you by our new title sponsor, FanDuel. Visit FanDuel.com/SECU to join today and get started with $200 in bonus bets when you win your first dollar bet, folks. Again, we're fired up. FanDuel is our title sponsor here at the SEC Unfiltered channel. The few, the proud, SEC Unfiltered, FanDuel. Couldn't think of two better partners. Go check our guys out. And again, this episode of Dave Knows Ball is brought to you by our buddies over at FanDuel. Guys, appreciate you joining us here on this episode of Dave Knows Ball. A lot to get into. It's going to be basketball heavy. We're going to be on the hardwood, talking about the best conference in the country. We're going to talk a little bracketology. It's January 27th. And it's going to be conference tournament time, folks, before we blink. I mean, I was talking to our good old buddy JBR Bracketology here. I still don't even know his first name. He won't give it to me. That's his alias. He's very proud of his brand. I mean, again, guys, go give him the follow at JBR Bracketology. We'll get into that interview in just a minute. Pre-recorded interview from earlier today. Go about 15, 20 minutes, just talking all things SEC from can Auburn get off the one line? We talk about who do you like better to get on the one line, Bama, Florida, or Tennessee. Talk about where Ole Miss is. What do they have to do? Vandy, Missouri, their ceilings, their floors. How many teams ultimately make it into the NCAA tournament from the SEC? Texas, can they get in at 7 and 11, or do they have to kind of go at least 8 and 10? It's kind of where we're at from that perspective there. So we'll talk about that. We cover all that. Also, our buddy from the Full Court Network will join us. Luke Taylor has been on the show before, helped us preview that big weekend, I think back in December. Creighton, Bama, Purdue, A&M, Auburn. Who was it? Auburn, Ohio State that weekend. It was something like that. He helped us preview that one. He helped us preview a couple SEC midweek slates. Big fan of the show. And also one of our good buddies from the show. Appreciate those guys over at the Full Court Network. Luke will join us about probably 8:45. So buckle up for another 43 minutes for the big guy. Gets in here and joins us from that perspective. We'll talk a little SEC basketball power rankings. I released my video. I highly encourage you guys to go check out that power rankings video. And then we'll go around the SEC, and we'll get right around to the SEC right now. Guys, Florida fans, breathe a sigh of relief. Todd Golden, as you know, your head men's basketball coach, is cleared. Is cleared officially of all the Title IX stuff that came out. Officially, the University of Florida informed. This is a statement, first of all, from Holland and Knight, Todd Golden's attorney. The University of Florida informed me that the Title IX investigation into Coach Todd Golden has finally been dismissed. This investigation has found no evidence to support the allegations against Coach Golden. The university's conclusion proves that the complaint was meritless. Sounds like a little boy who cried wolf type of deal from what it can tell. Again, it was always interesting to me. I'm not going to get into too details because I don't know. I can't get into the weeds of that because I don't know all the details. It just seemed like it was like brushed away. Florida already kind of had their ducks in a row. They saw this coming. It was like a release in the student newspaper. You never heard from it again. I mean, it got released in like early November, like right heading into game 2 or 3 for Florida, I think very early in the season. It just kind of went to the wayside, and here we are. Very meritless. But just bringing that up, that happened today. Jay Billis. Sorry, why did I say Bayless? Jay Billis. I was reading in my notes. Did you hear what Jay Billis said today? And I agree with the Billister. And I think the Billister is one of the best commentators in the sport. I appreciate how he talks about the NCAA, talks about officiating. He was a former student athlete back, in 83, 84 with Duke, with Krzyzewski and them. But Jay Billis, right on. Jay Bayless, can't believe I'd say that. But Jay Billis, he said this morning on McElroy and Kublik in the morning on Jocks. Quote, winning the SEC tournament is going to be harder than winning the national championship because you're doing it day after day after day and all that stuff and playing better teams throughout the course of it when you would play in the course of an NCAA tournament. He is right. I mean, but it goes to show you, too, like how much do you invest in the SEC tournament? That's wild to say. It's wild to say. Because when there's usually most competitors, when there's a championship to be won, let's go compete, put our best foot forward and try to win this. But as we saw last year, the NCAA the tournament selection committee takes into account, like you can move yourself on or off the bubble in the tournament or out of the tournament, what you do in your conference tournament. But you can't really move a seed line. We saw it with Auburn last year. And they beat who? South Carolina, Mississippi State, and Florida. All 3 NCAA tournament teams last year and didn't even move a seed line. It really doesn't mean much unless you're on the bubble. You can play your way in or play your way out. I mean, it's really what it is. I mean, for the most part, that's what it is. He's right. And I also agree with this part. He goes on to add, he added, quote, the one concern I'd have in the SEC. There's two things he said. If you win the SEC tournament, how much gas are you going to have left in the tank after that? Again, kind of go back to Auburn last year. Again, got on that run in the SEC tournament, looked a little bit out of gas. Granted, the Chad Baker-Mazzaro ejection, Mazzaro ejection against Yale last year. They lost in the first round. They seem like they were a little juiceless, ran out of running on E a little bit, maybe. And then he brought up officiating, which I've said for years. And I was talking to one of the buddies on social media the other night, friends of the show from Dog Central, Graham Coffee, about how poor SEC basketball officiating is. We all want to get up in arms about football. Basketball officiating, if you're new to basketball, folks, is a lot worse than SEC football officials. I promise you. I promise you. Here's Jay Billis's quote on officiating. The other thing is the SEC has been officiated as football this year. Some of these games are football games, and that's not going to be the same whistle they get in the NCAA tournament. But I tend to think that the gauntlet they're going through is going to make them tougher than some of the other conferences are going to be when they get to the NCAA tournament. And he's 100% right. He's 100% right from that perspective. That's where the league will kind of flex. That's where teams could get into foul trouble with the NCAA tournament, because as you guys know, that's not SEC officials. That's officials from the ACC, the Big Ten, Conference USA, so all of them, all over the regions of the country. So that'll be interesting. He does make a good point from that perspective, because the league is so physical. I mean, it's like a football game, and he follows it up with, there's never been a conference like this. So the SEC has put up numbers, both non-conference and up to now, and that hasn't been matched in close to 40 years. And the last time any conference put up numbers like this as far as success against the rest of the country was when I was playing in the ACC in 1984. You know, Michael Jordan was at North Carolina, Len Bias was at Maryland, and that was a dominant conference. But the difference is that the ACC was 8 teams. The SEC is doing this with 16. It's hard to have 16 teams this good. I've never seen anything like it. I mean, he's right, 100%. That's how deep this league is. I mean, we've seen South Carolina. You've seen my power rankings. I have them 16th. South Carolina could have wins over Auburn, Vanderbilt, Florida, and Mississippi State. All NCAA tournament teams, folks. All NCAA tournament teams. That's how bad. South Carolina's not a good team. They do what bad teams do. They find ways to lose games, but they're not a terrible basketball team, and they're last. I mean, that's what it is. I'm not ready to say if they were in the Big Ten or the ACC, they'd finish like third or something. I'm not ready to say that. I think that's a little ridiculous. Again, they beat Clemson. They beat Clemson in the ACC-SEC Challenge. Not ready to go there, but nonetheless, Jay Billis's point is correct. I mean, it's the best league ever. We knew that. I think it is from this perspective of what they've done in the non-conference play through conference play. It's just officiating could be massive come tournament time, getting teams in foul trouble. Moving on to the next one, the top 25 players in college football heading to 2025. I wouldn't say buddy. I don't really know this guy. I just thought it was an interesting something to bring around the SEC here. Thomas Goldcamp ranking the On3 Impact top 25 players in college football heading into the 2025 season here. Let's rush through them. Number 1, Jeremiah Smith, a wide receiver from Ohio State. Number 2, quarterback Sam Levitt from Arizona State. A little too high for me a little bit. It's a little too high. Sam Levitt, the second best player in the sport. And let me say, everybody releases top 25 things way too early, top 25 preseason polls, top 25 players. I know it's content. It's engagement forming. I can't get into it. Chris laughs at me all the time like, dude, it's engagement. It's engagement, or it's just content. I don't think people take it too serious. It's funny, but again, it is. It's just for fun. It's just content. Caleb Downs 3. I mean, I'd probably put Caleb Downs at 2 ahead of Sam Levitt. I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy there. Dylan Stewart, who our buddy Cole Thompson may have a little bit of a surprise for. Just keep your ears to the ground. Super Bowl week. Edge, Dylan Stewart at 4. I can see that right now. 5, Colin Simmons, edge from Texas. I can see that now. I'm loving the young edge rushers from our conference. 6, Drew Aller. I can't see that. Quarterback from Penn State. Not right now, folks. There's no way. Not right now. 7, Ryan Williams. I can take that. I can live with that. Top 10 player right now. 7, 8. All right, you argue where you're splitting hairs. But top 10, I'll go with that. 8, Leonard Moore. I'll be honest with you, I hadn't watched a ton of Leonard Moore. I can't really say from that perspective. I think he's a good player from the little I've seen him in these playoffs for Notre Dame, but I can't speak objectively for that. LT Overton, 9th. Maybe a little too high. I think that upside's a top 10 player in the sport. Is he a top 10 heading into the season? I don't know. I think he could get there. Jeremiah Love, I like this. Again, I'm not usually hook, line, and sinker on running backs completely, but I think he is one of those guys that falls forward, plays with a good pad level. He's consistent. You know what you're getting with Jeremiah Love. I can live with this. I can live with this. 10th is about right. The rest of the on-3 impact top 25, 11 through 25, folks. Yeah. Where'd it go? There it is. Sorry. Fell out on me here, folks. Stick with me. Stick with me. All right, 11th. Anthony Hill, linebacker from Texas. Okay. Dante Corline from Cincinnati, defensive tackle. I'll be honest, I need to go watch him. Quarterback DJ Lagway, 13th for Florida. I like that. Ceiling could be higher, I think, too. I think it's a good spot for him. Again, probably a little bit more of position. I mean, importance. And again, quarterback's the most important position in the sport, I argue, and in all of sports. Number 14, Arch Manning. Could be. A little too early, but I get why. 15, Jermod McCoy, corner from Tennessee, who I thought was one of the more impactful players in the SEC this year. I thought he was one of the more impactful players, underrated players, honestly. The transfer from Oregon State, probably the best corner Tennessee's had in a very long time, at least the Josh Heupel era, because that's been kind of the weakness. But it's big to have him coming back. I like that. Maybe top 20 player, maybe a little too high. But TJ Parker, DN at Clemson, I like that. Ruben Bain, yes, good player for Miami at 17. Number 18, Peter Woods, State Alabama kid from Clemson, was talked about maybe getting to the portal, but he's going to come back for Clemson. I like that. Maybe a little higher, honestly. He could be. Maybe a little underrated. Wide receiver Jordan Tyson from Arizona State. We didn't see him in a lot of those big games where he was out late in these playoffs. Kenny Dillingham, Sam Levitt, and them still had an opportunity to beat Texas. Give them credit. They won the Big 12. But again, I'd like to see him against better competition. Number 20, Lenore Sellers. He's going to be the sexy pick to be like a player of the year in the SEC this year. How Mike Shula develops him will be key. Again, we talk about developing Cam Newton. It's tough to take too much credit for Cam Newton. I mean, let's be honest. Again, I grew up an Alabama fan, went to Alabama. I remember the Mike Shula days. John Parker Wilson's better season. I know we're going way back. We're going back when your boy was getting ready for prom here. Junior year of high school. We're going back to 06. But one of John Parker Wilson's better season was his first year under Mike Shula. So Mike Shula's been able to develop some quarterbacks. I'm not going to throw Cam Newton in there because I feel like you're just giving credit just for having coach in front of your name when you're coaching him. He's a genetic freak. Mickey Mouse could have made Cam Newton look like a pretty good player. Number 21, another quarterback from the SEC, Garrett Nussmeier. I could see that. Maybe a little too high. I want to see a little more consistency. Get the turnovers down for our guy, Garrett. Number 22, Spencer Fano from Utah, offensive lineman. 23, corner Avion Terrell, AJ Terrell's little brother. 24, former SEC quarterback, Carson Beck, now at Miami, sitting at 24. And then to a defensive end, Danny Dennis Sutton from Penn State. Rounds out the 25, rounds out 25th. So that's just an On3 article ranking the top 25 players of college football heading into 2025 from Thomas Goldcamp. Interesting read. I thought he did a good job from that perspective. And then quickly, before we get into our JBR video here, I just wanted to come out again. College baseball season, about 2 weeks away, 2.5 weeks away. There's 3 weeks from this past weekend. Baseball America came out with their poll. I just wanted to briefly talk about this again. Chris Phillips, Harrison Fant will carry you through baseball season. But remember, go like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, folks. The race to 20,000 YouTube subscribers. We need you. Again, best SEC content you can get in football, basketball, and like I'm mentioning, baseball. I won't be leading baseball content. That'll be Chris. That'll be Harrison. They'll do a phenomenal job. They carried you through Omaha. I mean, I helped with a little bit of the Omaha coverage last year as well. But coming in at number 1, Texas A&M. LSU sits at number 2. The defending national champs, number 3, Tennessee Volunteers come in. Speaking of Harrison, go check out his interview with the defending national champion head coach Tony Vitello. Tony V sat down with Harrison, talked about this team. Hunter Inslee, I think they have an interview coming out, so go check that out. Number 4, Dave Van Horn squad, Arkansas from the SEC. Number 7, Kevin O'Sullivan in Florida. Number 11, Georgia comes in. Number 15, Vanderbilt. 14, Texas. 18, Mississippi State. Which team? One of these Mississippi teams got to bounce back and have a pretty good year. Again, Mississippi State made a regional last year. They were fine, but still. 20, Kentucky, the Batcats. Nick Mingione's team back after coming back from Omaha. Can they do it again? Again, that statement, anyone can do something once. Can they do it again? I'm kidding. He's done a really good job with that program. And that'll round out the top 25 for the SEC, folks. But before we get going, let's go to a couple comments here. Cody Ritchie, I don't Auburn loses another game through their SEC run in the regular season. I don't see it happening. He says for basketball. I think like I mentioned, I've been as high on Auburn as anyone all year, but I do think this league is so tough. They're going to drop one on the road. They still got to go to Tuscaloosa. They got to go to College Station. They got to go to Lexington. They go to Ole Miss Saturday. Tricky game. But we'll see. But guys, let's get to JBR Bracketology. Our interview, again, pre-recorded this afternoon during lunch. Again, we break down a ton of stuff, breaking it down. We talk, can Auburn get off the 1 seed line? We talk about Alabama or Tennessee. Who do you like staying on that 1 seed line? Does the SEC get 2 number 1 seeds? I think so. I mean, I think you're fighting for 2 spots. We'll talk JBR to let us know. I think Auburn, Duke have them locked up. We talk how many SEC teams have locked up a spot. We talk Vandy, Missouri, ceiling floor. We talk just can Texas get in at 7-11, 8-10? Georgia. Is Georgia going to be that bubble team? It determines if the SEC gets anywhere from 10 to 12 teams. Again, I think it's kind of where we're at. We talk about all that stuff. Talk about this. Can Florida get to a 1 seed? I think they can. We talk about all that stuff. But here is the interview with our buddy JBR Bracketology. Go give him the follow at JBR Bracketology while you're listening to this. But I hope you enjoyed this interview as much as I did enjoy recording it for you guys. Joining us here once again today is our favorite bracketologist, JBR Bracketology. Folks, he's back. I've asked him, he can attest. I've asked him numerous times to come on, but he wanted more. He wanted it to marinate a little bit more. Let the data marinate so we could have more to talk about on this show. Again, joining us, JBR Bracketology. Go give him the follow at JBR Bracketology. JBR, what's going on, brother? How you doing?
Hey, I'm doing well. It's definitely fun kind of getting into the thick of the conference schedules and seeing more and more good teams playing against each other after, we had a quiet period around the holidays. So, just the last 3 weeks, I mean, it's every night is just awesome basketball games. And it continues tonight with Iowa State at Arizona. I know that's not an SEC game, but still, it's a really fun time to be a fan of college basketball, and March is not that far away. It's really not.
No, you're right. I 100% agree with you. I mean, we'll blink here and we'll be sitting in conference tournaments. I mean, it'll be wild to say we're about to be at the midway point of the league for most leagues. But so I mean, you're talking a little bit off air. Tell me, when do you go cook up the potion? When is this? We talked a little bit. I don't want to ruin anything from what you're about to say. But after the night's done, the games are settled again. We got the West Coast games finish late. When do you go and start crunching the numbers and get these numbers, these analytics out here for you to go conduct the bracketology?
Yeah, I mean, I always wait till the next morning. There's 7 metrics. If you include the net, there's 7 metrics. You have the net, there's 3 resume metrics, and there's 3 predictive metrics. Some of them update quickly, sometimes even within an hour of a game finishing, and some don't update until the next day. And so I typically wait till the next morning so I can get all of the updated numbers, because those are the same numbers that the committee is going to be looking at in March. So once those all get updated the next morning, along with the quad records, I take all of that data and kind of upload it into my master spreadsheet. And I create a new tab in that spreadsheet basically every 3 or 4 days. I do a full seedless update every Monday and every Friday. And I do still update it throughout the week, just so I have a cleaner idea, especially when people ask me questions, just so I have a cleaner idea of where teams sit. But, I put out the official JBR updates each Monday and Friday. And, the same thing with this morning. I waited for all the Saturday and Sunday games to be complete. I waited for all the metrics to be updated. And then, I get in there, get in the lab, as I like to call it, get in the lab Monday morning, look through all the data. I do have kind of a formulaic approach, at least to start. So, I upload all the data first, and then I go through seed line by seed line and make sure things make sense, or make sure, make sure everything that I want to be incorporated in my seed list and inside of each team's score is properly accounted for. Just knowing that there are things that that the data cannot account for.
Full-time job right there. Full-time job.
Close to it at times, for sure.
Well, let's hit. You tell me, let's bring up the new seed line here from our guy over at JBR Bracketology. Again, go give him the follow at JBR Bracketology. JBR, talk to us through it. You can talk nationally if you want here. I mean, I think everybody, it's our listeners here, watches college basketball in general. Who's kind of the biggest mover? We'll dissect SEC here specifically here in just a minute, but nationally, you can throw an SEC team if they fit this mold. Biggest movement from last week to this week in your new seed line?
I mean, I guess towards the top would be Houston. I mean, they at times have had 0, 1, and 2 quad 1 wins over the last 2 or 3 weeks. But they finally on Saturday night got their elite signature quad 1A win when they went into Allen Fieldhouse and beat Kansas. So, they're still undefeated in the Big 12, even though they kind of stumbled a bit in non-conference play. Now that they have that signature win to pair with their elite predictive metrics, that they are quickly moving up the seed list, and they're probably 2 more quad 1 wins away from jumping certainly Marquette and Michigan State and getting up to where Florida and Tennessee are. So I would say Houston has probably been the biggest riser over the weekend. Louisville out of the ACC, they've been red hot. They lost Keyshawn Pryor, I think, in early December. Ole Miss went in there the next game and just ran them out of the gym. I don't know if you remember that game.
Yeah,
they beat them by 23, I want to say, at Louisville, and it looked like Louisville's season was spiraling. And since that game, although I think they played Kentucky after that too, but since then, I mean, Louisville has been red hot. They are second place in the ACC. I think they're favored in every single game the rest of the season. They might finish 19-1 in the ACC. I'm not kidding. If you look at their schedule, I'm not sure that they lose another game. So they have really been surging up the seed list. I have them at the back end of the five line. Now, the problem is they don't really have any marquee games left either. So even though they keep winning, it's mostly just quad 3 and quad 4 games. So I think realistically their ceiling is probably a 4 seed, but they're definitely a team that's been moving up quickly. And then over in the Big 12, Texas Tech and Arizona have been cleaning up as well. And both teams are playing some really good basketball after stumbling in non-conference. So, you got a few different teams that either they played a weak non-conference schedule or they just didn't win their high-end games in the non-conference. And now that we're getting into the conference schedule and coaches kind of know their teams, know their roster a little bit better, you're seeing the cream rise to the top for sure.
Specifically the SEC here. How many locks would you say are in the NCAA tournament right now from this league?
So if you look, I mean, the seed list you have shared right there, I have my locks in purple. I remember you asked me in December how many locks. I'm like, whoa, no locks yet. It's a little early. But no, I have 8 locks total. I actually went into this past weekend, all 4 of my 3 seeds. I said if any of the 4 won, that they would be a lock, and all 4 of them lost. So I've been at 8 now for a little over a week, but I have 4 SEC teams locked. I have Auburn, Alabama, Florida, and Tennessee. Those 4 are all stone cold locks. I think Florida and Tennessee might need to win 1 more game technically, but I'm 110% confident that they will win the 1 more game that they need to between now and Selection Sunday to get there.
What will Auburn have to do? Again, I think they're going to have to lose this. What will they have to do to get off the 1 seed line?
They would probably need to lose at least 5 SEC games, maybe even 6. I mean, they have 11 quad 1 wins already. I think it would be a major upset for Auburn to not end up a 1 seed. I can't promise you they'll be number 1 overall. I know there was some discussion at the end of last week. I think Lenardi had a post about Duke being most likely to be the number 1 overall, which he's technically right just because their schedule is so much easier.
They have the head-to-head.
and they have the head-to-head. So it's really easy if Auburn ends up 16-2, which is an insane schedule in this SEC. But if Auburn ends up 16-2, Duke's probably going to be number one overall if they end up 20-0 or 19-1 in the ACC, even though I would argue Auburn going 16-2 in the SEC is a lot more impressive than Duke going 19-1 in the ACC. But at some point, the committee is going to see an Auburn team that has more losses and a Duke team that has a head-to-head win, and they're going to pick Duke. I can tell you right now, they're going to pick Duke if Auburn loses.
That's the scenario.
Yeah, exactly.
Who do you like better getting on that 1 seed line? I mean, I know Alabama's sitting there right now, the third 1 seed. Do you like Alabama to stay there, or you think Tennessee gets back up there? If you had to say right now, who do you think? And again, I know we're predicting games.
Yeah, I mean, that one's a lot harder to say because at the end of the day, it's up to the teams to decide on the court. All these teams have really difficult strength of schedule. You know, Florida's right there too, right? They've lost 2 games all year. Yeah. So, I mean, all those teams are right there. They all have the opportunity to. Alabama plays Auburn twice. If they go 2-0, I can almost guarantee you they'll be a one seed. If they go 0-2, they probably won't be a 1 seed, you know? So it's really up to them. Alabama's in the best shape as of now just because of the resume. You know, Alabama's actually number 2 in all 3 resume metrics. I mean, Alabama's played a really difficult strength of schedule and has performed extremely well against that strength of schedule. But you know, we saw them lose at home to Ole Miss a week and a half ago. You know, anything can happen between now and Selection Sunday. So it's hard to say who will end up there. Yeah. But what I can say is they're all in position to get there for sure.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, it wouldn't shock you if Florida. I mean, like you said, all these teams still have plenty of opportunities to go move up seed lines, to your point. That's why the Florida one's interesting sitting there at 5. Here's my next 2 questions that I'm pretty fired up about because I think these are some interesting mid-tier SEC teams that still have some work to do. What about Vandy and Missouri, in your opinion? Like, how far off is Missouri becoming a lock to the tournament? Vandy probably got a little more work to do, but what about them as well? Like, how confident do you think Vandy stays in this field, or do you kind of, again, that's going to be up to them? But like from their resume,
yeah, I'm definitely more confident in Missouri than I am with Vanderbilt for sure. Let me see. Let me pull up Missouri. So Missouri's 16-4, and they're 5-2 in the SEC. So they're in really good shape. If Missouri wins, let me see what their next 2 games are. But generally speaking, 18-4 out of Power Conference League. I'm pretty much ready to lock them. Oh yeah. So Missouri's next 2 games are at Mississippi State and at Tennessee. So yes, if they win their next 2 games, they are 100% a lock. No questions asked. I don't think that they're going to win both of those next 2. My guess is Missouri will become a lock sometime in mid-February when they beat, or if they're able to beat Oklahoma or win at Georgia.
They get Alabama at home, which will be a tough game for Alabama.
Right, and then they get Alabama the 19th. So my guess is Missouri will become a lock somewhere in there, depending on how many games they win over the next couple weeks. And then Vanderbilt's a tier lower for me, just because. Well,
you have the doors right now at 8 seeds hitting the 32, 36.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of things working against Vanderbilt. One of them is their non-conference strength of schedule was really bad.
Brutal.
And there's nothing the committee loves more than hammering teams for non-conference. Vanderbilt's number 337 non-conference strength of schedule entering today, which is not good. And then, you know, Vanderbilt, I would say just looking at their overall resume, it's a little bit top heavy. You know, those wins versus Tennessee and Kentucky are awesome, but they really don't have much else behind it. You know, they beat Nevada in the Charleston Classic back in November, but Nevada's completely fallen apart. They beat Seton Hall, who's the worst team in the Big East. They beat LSU on the road, but LSU's probably going to finish in the bottom 3 of the SEC, you know, so they just don't really have anything else to help them besides those 2 great wins. They're projected to go 8-10 in the SEC right now in KenPom. I think that's what they're going to need to get. 8-10, they're in the field, but I worry that 7-11 might not be enough, but it depends on who the wins are against. You know, if they can get a win at Florida, at Tennessee, at Kentucky, at Texas A&M. I mean, if they can steal one of them, you know, I'm certainly not expecting them to win multiple, but if they can win another elite win, especially away from home, because that's really something they're lacking right now. If Vanderbilt can score an elite win away from home, that could be enough at 7-11 to get them in.
7-11 potentially. So you think 8-10, they're good?
8-10, I'm very confident. Yeah, at 8-10, I don't think it matters who the win's coming against. Given that they've already beaten Tennessee and Kentucky, if they get to 8-10, which is only 4 more wins of their remaining 11 games. So if they can finish 4-7, then they're in. Yeah, I feel very confident in that.
What about Ole Miss? I mean, they got the big win against Alabama, then they've lost 3 straight to what? At Mississippi State in overtime. They lost that heartbreaker at A&M midweek, but this past week, and then they lost to Missouri in a tough road game. And none of them are bad losses. Do you feel like, are they slipping down a little bit, or you're like, I don't know, maybe too early to panic? I feel like they'll make the tournament, but what's your thoughts on them?
I mean, none of them are bad losses, first and foremost, right? So that's the most important thing to remember. None of them are bad losses. They, I have them, as you see right there, I have them a 5 seed. That win at Louisville that we talked about earlier has aged beautifully. That's a fantastic win.
It was in the ACC SEC challenge. They got them, yeah.
And that win at Alabama is huge. I mean, if Alabama ends up a 1 seed, if you look at my 4 1 seeds right now, right? Auburn, Duke, Alabama, Iowa State combined, they have lost 1 game at home. That 1 game at home was Ole Miss beating them on their home court. So that is as elite of a win as you can possibly get, is beating a 1 seed on their home court. So, no, when I look at the win at Alabama, the win at Louisville, and then they also have a neutral court win over BYU. I have BYU out of the field right now, but BYU is number 31 in KenPom. So there's a good chance that BYU, if we believe in KenPom and believe in predictive metrics, which I would like to, at least to an extent, then I think there's a pretty good chance that BYU ends up in the tournament as well. So you've got a couple really good non-conference wins away from home. BYU was in neutral court, Louisville was at Louisville, and you already have as elite of a win as you can get with their win at Alabama. So they've got the high-end elite wins. KenPom has them going 10-8 in the SEC. I feel pretty confident Ole Miss is one of the teams that would get in at even 7-11 in the SEC, no matter who the wins are against at this point. Given the quality wins they already have away from home, if they just get 3 more wins, they're in 100%, regardless of who they're against.
Last question here, JBR. Again, I appreciate you joining us here. Go give him the follow at JBR Bracketology. Does Texas get in at 7-11?
Texas, I'm going to say no, because they, like Vanderbilt, had a really bad non-conference. They also lost 2 games. They played 2 decent teams, and they went 0-2. So that right off the bat is not a great spot to be in. Texas's non-conference strength of schedule, number 285. That definitely falls in the bucket of bad non-conference schedule that the committee likes to punish teams for. So I have Texas as number 42 overall, last 4 in. Texas is currently projected to go 8-10 in KenPom. If they get 8-10, they will be in. If they go 7-11, I'm pretty confident that they will be out, unless they can secure a couple big ones. But they don't really have too many real elite matchups left when I'm looking at their schedule. They only play Florida once, and they already played them. They only play Auburn once, and they already played them. They only played Tennessee once, and they already played them. And they lost all 3. So
Alabama be a big home win.
Right. And so they get Alabama February 11th. But in terms of, those 1 and 2 seeds that can really move the needle, especially away from home, Texas either doesn't have those opportunities or already played them and lost them. So I feel confident that Texas needs to get to 8-10, which would mean that they need to go 5-6 over their last 11 games to get in. I don't think 4-7 finish, which gets them to 7-11 overall in the SEC. I really don't think that will be enough for Texas.
I said it was my last question, but I'm going to officially ask you now. Right now, on January 27th, 2025, how many teams do you think the SEC gets in?
I'm going to say 12. I don't remember how many I said last time, but I have 13 in the field as of today. I will say 12. I think someone between Texas, Georgia, and Vanderbilt will fall out, and I think the two others will get in, and then everyone else above them will remain in.
Oklahoma.
Oklahoma is an interesting one too. I have them there atop the 8 line. their non-conference was awesome, right? They neutral court wins over Arizona, Louisville, and Michigan, all three top 7 seeds as of today. They get an SEC play and they start 0-4. They've steadied the ship a little bit. That was a big win on Saturday at Arkansas. I know Arkansas is shorthanded, but still, winning on the road at Arkansas is still a good win. And so, they're 2-4 now. They're projected to go 7-11. The big question is, does Oklahoma get in at 6-12? My personal opinion is that they do. And I know that there are a lot of people that probably think that they don't deserve to get in at 6-12. I think that they get into 6-12, but it would be a very, very nerve-wracking selection Sunday to go 6-12 in the SEC and, try to make the argument that you deserve a bid. But I think what they did in the non-conference would be enough, but it would be close. I'm not going to lie. It would be close.
You think 6-12 would be about Dayton, where they would be at that point? They're in a play-in game?
Somewhere around there, yeah. I mean, 10 or 11 seed. 7-11, I think they're in for sure. Yeah. Probably an 8 or 9 seed, no question. I feel very confident they're in at 7-11. But 6-12 is the tricky one. I lean that they're in, but I admit it's close. And I also admit that the committee members are human, and it is hard. Even though they technically don't look at conference records, like if you follow the sport, you should know that Oklahoma.
Yeah.
You should know that they went 6-12 because that's what anyone is going to be talking about. So it would be a highly contested placement for an Oklahoma team if they did end up going 6-12. So we will see.
No, we could talk about these seedings all day, but JBR, I appreciate you joining us, man. I appreciate you taking the time, guys. That's about that's all the bracket knowledge you need right now, especially for the remainder of the week. We'll change tonight. Our guys going to be cooking up some potion tonight and presenting it, I'm sure, here in the next few days. But we're going to get you back on here in the next 2 weeks when you got some more data, when you have some more data to keep cooking up for us, to give us some seed lines here for the SEC teams. Yeah, definitely. I would be happy to join you again. Perfect, guys. Again, go give him the follow at JBR Bracketology, guys. JBR, I appreciate you joining us, brother. All right. Thanks for having me. Thanks. Good interview there earlier with our buddy over there, JBR Bracketology. Again, I don't even know the guy's name. Don't even know his name. I think all he does is sit back there and just cook up potions, cook up these seed lines. That's all he does all day. I always see his backdrop. It just looks like a blank wall back there. It's like, hey, all I do is crunch numbers and get into bracketology. I'm sure he's a million mock bracks out there, even in the spring, probably. I don't know. Just, again, won't give me his first name, alias. I'm impressed. It's actually impressive. It kind of gives you that Batman mystique, Bruce Wayne kind of. But to the point here, phenomenal interview there. I mean, it's from a standpoint of the intriguing teams to me in the league right now are, does Missouri kind of stay in that 5-6 range that a lot of people have in their power rankings? And I'll bring my power rankings up here in a minute. I have them at 5th. They were the biggest riser this week. Kentucky was the biggest fall, but Missouri's interesting. And then there's probably 3 teams, honestly. I want to see how Ole Miss can get off the mat here a little bit. They lost 3 straight since the big win in Tuscaloosa against Alabama. And then finally, Georgia. Kind of feel like I'm starting to trust Vandy a little bit. They're going to steal some at home. You just don't really trust them on the road. And it's like JBR was saying, you're waiting for that signature road win from Vanderbilt. That's kind of the mystery to me. The top 4 teams, I'm kind of whatever. I think Kentucky's going to make the tournament. They got to get healthy. But that's really how I would kind of – those are the big question marks as we're reaching that midway point of conference play. And with that being said, let me scroll down here. Let's get our buddy – LT, my guy, Lance Taylor, or Luke Taylor. Sorry, why I call you Lance? I was thinking of next round. Luke Taylor from the Full Court Network joining us. Let me get you on the dual screen here, brother. So we're on the same level. There we are. Luke, what's going on tonight, brother? Lance is doing well. He said to send his regards. Lance Taylor from the next round joining us tonight. No, we got the better Taylor. We got Luke Taylor from the Full Court. Let's go. Network. What's going on, brother? Ain't no party like an SEC party, baby. It is. Hey, this year you're right. I don't know of a conference that has been so dominant in the last couple decades like the SEC. Yeah. I mean, we got our comment. Our guy Donovan keeps chatting it up. He's talking about how bad South Carolina is, but he's also kind of being like, hey, where would they finish kind of in the ACC kind of deal? I hear people bring that up. I'm not ready to say they would make the tournament in the ACC. Maybe you disagree. I mean, your thoughts on that?
They beat Clemson. They beat Clemson
in the ACC, SEC challenge. You're right.
South Carolina's 0-7. 0-7.
It could be 4-3. I mean, you could if you make some free throws down the stretch against Auburn. You had Vandy down to the wire at Memorial.
Florida.
You had Mississippi State and Florida this past week in overtime and buzzer beaters.
And I mean, think about this: if Michi Johnson came back for USC,
is he still hurt at Ohio State?
I think so. Yeah, he hasn't really had a great year for them.
No, you're right. They miss a guy like Michi again. I mean, the offense just kind of rolls through Colin Murray Bulls. But again, that shows you how good the league. We're talking about the 16th ranked team. Hey, I want your 2 cents on this. I'm bringing up my power rankings. Poke a hole into it. Poke a hole into it for me.
Man, Arkansas at 15. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, I mean, my biggest right. I think most can't argue South Carolina at 16. I think we're all kind of there. But to our point, they're not terrible.
You got to switch Arkansas and LSU.
You think you put in your opinion, you put Arkansas at 14.
Yeah, but I mean, I'd even put them at 13. I think OU and LSU are going to start sliding. No offense. I think this is the time where,
who'd you say? You said Oklahoma and who are sliding?
I would say Oklahoma and LSU. I thought Texas was, but then they had that great win this week. So what do I know?
They had 2 great wins this week. Top 25, Missouri and A&M. They had that. And I think too, Luke. They had to have that.
Yep. Yeah, I will tell you, Missouri's been the most surprising team, maybe even in the nation for me. I mean, but I think this comes to show when you have, like, you look at Ed Cooley at Georgetown. I know we're talking about SEC, but you look at Georgetown last year, really struggled. This year, turned the corner. Last year, Missouri struggled. This year, I saw them play against Memphis. I'm like, oh God, here we go. But the potential's there. And I mean, I'm impressed. I mean, if you look at these rankings, I don't see how you don't have 12 teams in the NCAA tournament this year. I don't know who you don't invite if you have 10.
Well, see, here's my question to you, Luke. I kind of feel like you tell me if I'm wrong. I feel like we're at 9 right now. Let me pull up the basketball standings from a perspective so I can call them out. You tell me if I'm wrong. I've been doing this all day. When I've been talking to people about the SEC and basketball, how many teams are going to get in. I don't think it's as like 12, 13 as people are saying. Because look, I think Auburn, Alabama, I'm even going to say Missouri will make the tournament, Florida, Mississippi State, Tennessee, A&M, and I think Ole Miss. Independent and Kentucky. I think you're sitting there at 9, depending if you count Vanderbilt in already. I don't officially count them in. I think we're sitting at 9, pretty sure locks, and I think we're weighing it between 4 teams, between Vandy, Georgia, Oklahoma, and Texas. I think Arkansas, LSU, and South Carolina are out. I think those are the 3 for sure. Would you agree with that? I think those are the 3 for sure outs in the SEC.
Yep.
And I think you have 4 teams that are kind of fighting for whether the SEC is either going to get 11 or 12, really, in my opinion.
When Big West Flanagan, we interviewed Big West Flanagan from Ole Miss, Auburn legend. He's like, we're going to get 14 in.
And now you're like, I know he's being facetious there, but like he's not that far off.
He's being pretty serious.
He was being pretty serious. He's seeing it right now, dude. When he's at Ole Miss right now, it's like, dang, we go win in Tuscaloosa and we have 3 straight losses.
Look at this.
But I was talking to JBR earlier, Luke. And you wouldn't say any of those 3 losses for Ole Miss were bad. At Mississippi State,
no.
A&M is a buzzer beater. They beat you at home, and then you go at Missouri.
Yeah, those are 3 losses to 3 tournament teams. To think, the 2 most impressive teams this year, is Missouri and Vanderbilt. It to me is just amazing that Vanderbilt with Jason Edwards, he was at North Texas last year. We're big fans of the Mean Green and Byington. You know what? And I own the transfer portal. It could make you a contender in that first year. And he's doing it. Who would have thought? Vanderbilt, when he took that job, Sam and I were talking like that's like a graveyard. Look at Jerry Stackhouse, Bryce Drew. Who's the last guy that won there? It's not Kevin O'Neill. What's his name?
Kevin Stallings.
Yeah, Kevin Stallings.
Yeah.
Billy McCaffrey.
That won there consistently. Yeah.
Yeah. It's tough. And they are a legitimate top 25 team.
Yeah. They are. Bryce Drew went to the tournament one time, I think maybe. But to your point, consistent success. Last time Vanderbilt had it, you're right, Kevin Stallings. Were you a little off topic? Were you a Stackhouse guy?
Oh yeah, man. And when he played, not when he coached.
Coach it, man. Where you got? Did
I
you think
don't
they
know.
did him wrong by getting rid of him then?
I think Vanderbilt is you have to have the right fit.
Yeah.
And I thought Bryce Drew was the right fit. And Stackhouse is a good coach. I just don't. He's not an SEC coach, and I don't mean any disrespect to that. There's just a different type of coach, and he's more like an ACC, kind of that kind of coach. I mean, he played there obviously, but I mean, Byington, did wonders at James Madison. I mean, they beat Michigan State last year. I mean, he recruited real well, and he's translated to Vanderbilt.
What, didn't they smoke Wisconsin in the tournament that year? Was that it?
Man,
they smoked someone. It wasn't even like a competitive first-round game with Byington and them at JMU. But no, to your point, he owned the port. I mean, they added the Tyler Tanner kid, who was the Gatorade Player of the Year back-to-back in the state of Tennessee. He brings in the nickel kid who can get hot. A.J. Hogard played forever. I think
Michigan
State when I was in 8th grade.
Yeah. When you got a guy wearing number 99 on your team, you're going to be good.
Yeah. No, I mean, you're right. They have a bunch of good pieces to that team where it's like, yeah, they're a bunch of older guys kind of play, except Tyler Tanner, obviously. But, you're right. He has a good fit right there. And even I thought they're 2-1 in the last 3, only road losses at Alabama. And, again, Alabama never was in doubt of losing that game, but Vanderbilt wouldn't go away in that game. Bama could have extended it to 18-20, but then Vanderbilt going like a 9-0 run, get it back to 8-9. They just couldn't mount that big comeback. 2 massive wins. And I'm with JBR a little bit. Can they get that signature road win? That's what you're kind of sitting there thinking. We got a question here for you.
Yep.
Luke, we got a fan in here asking our guy Donovan. Donovan, appreciate you listening, brother. Which teams are better than you expected and which teams are worse than you expected based on preseason?
So obviously Missouri, Vanderbilt, Texas. I thought Texas is better than expected.
No, you think they're better, you think?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the one team exactly who I need to write like a love letter to Buzz Williams. I mean, what Texas A&M has done. And I mean, Zurich Phelps that came in from SMU is just, I thought it was a Wade Taylor show. I don't think it's the Wade Taylor show anymore. I mean, when he went out,
Phelps. Dude, go back and watch that Alabama game. It was just when Wade Taylor was out. It's just, hey, let's let Phelps shoot. Hey, Henry, Anderson, can y'all get some rebounds here?
Yeah.
And even the kid they brought from Minnesota's good.
Yeah. Farrell, Payne?
Yeah.
I think is his name.
Payne.
The thing is who's good at puzzles. And I will tell you, John Calipari is not good at puzzles anymore. And that's what you're seeing. I mean, you look at the teams, Tennessee, they brought in, Chaz Lanier, a puzzle piece. Missouri brought in Mitchell, brought in a number of guys, puzzle pieces, brought in a freshman. Vanderbilt, Mississippi State's another one. Kentucky could easily be a top 4 team, as could Ole Miss. But the strength of the conference is so good. The team that I'm most disappointed about is Arkansas. There's no reason they should be playing this poorly with the amount of talent they have on that team.
No, I know we throw this around a lot, but do you think this is fair? You're more of a national guy. Do you think it's fair to say Arkansas is the most disappointing team in the sport this year?
I would say they're up there with like Indiana. Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. North Carolina. Yep. I would say Arkansas. I mean, the thing is with Calipari is, he struggled the last couple of years at Kentucky, goes to Arkansas, new beginnings, brings all these guys in, brings in these guys that Edu Thero, Wagner, brought in these guys that know his system, and it's just not translating. I mean, they bring in the John L. Davis who struggled, but then you look at his teammate Elijah Martin at Florida. I mean, the guy's a ball player.
Well, yeah, one of the best guard trios in the country with those 3.
Oh,
it's like you said. It seems like Arkansas. Nelly Dave's been playing better since Flan's been out with the hand injury, and he's taking over the point full time. He's been playing a little better, but you're right. I mean, they can only go. They're only 8 guys now. Like at some point,
there's just no nights off in the SEC anymore. I mean, every game is competitive. You look at South Carolina, 0-7, 0-7. And they played Florida by 1, lost to Florida by 1 point, Alabama by 3. I watched the Mississippi State game. I mean, they could have won that game.
Yeah.
So if that's your weakest team in the conference and they're battling against some of the better teams in the conference, the second and third team, they lost by 3 and 1. That should tell you how deep and strong the conference is.
No, you're 100% right. And before we get going to some more questions here to our guy, Luke Taylor, before we get into the midweek action, folks, Again, Super Bowl 59, one game, two teams, endless possibilities. And there's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. Whether you're predicting the first touchdown, who will take home the MVP trophy, or the coin toss, FanDuel makes it easy to bet, or easy to place your bets and feel the thrill of every moment. With live betting all game long, you can jump into the action, adjust your bets, and ride the wave of excitement from kickoff to the final whistle. Plus, to make the Super Bowl even sweeter, new customers can score $200 when you make your first bet. Just place a $5 bet, and if you win, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com/SECU and bet with FanDuel, official partner of Super Bowl 59. Must be 21 and present in select states. For Kansas, an affiliation with the Kansas Star Casino, or 18 plus and present in DC. First online real money wager only. $5 first deposit required. Bonus issued is non-withdrawable bonus bets, which expire 7 days after the receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit fanduel.com/RG. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut, or visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts, or call 1-877-8-HOPE NY or text Hope NY in New York. Luke, here's a question for you right here. Did you hear your boy Jay Billis today go on McElroy and Kublik say it'll be harder to win the SEC tournament this year than it'll be to win the NCAA tournament?
Absolutely.
I agree too. When you talk about the quality of competition, and like if you're a high seed, obviously your first, second round, you'll probably be playing a worse team than you'd play in the quarterfinals in Nashville.
I mean, name me a conference that's as close to the SEC as the SEC is to everybody else.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right. And he brought up another good point, which it'll be interesting to see how these coaches manage this. If like you're locked into a top 2 seed, I want your opinion here, Luke. How do you think these coaches will start kind of preparing from like a minute standpoint, a load standpoint, as you're just a week away from the NCAA tournament, and say, like, as we see, the NCAA tournament selection committee doesn't really move up seed lines much. You can play your way in or out of the tournament, but we saw with Auburn last year, won 3 straight quad 1 wins, didn't really move off the 4 line. Like, it is what it is. If you're a coach, if you're Coach Taylor, are you kind of adjusting a minute standpoint heading into the SEC tournament this year?
Yes. I'm managing minutes a little bit more, just, watching injuries. I mean, guy like Johnny Broom, you got to watch him. I mean, he looked pretty good, 2 nights ago.
Yeah, I mean, Auburn didn't win that game
against Tennessee. What's that? Yeah. I mean,
Auburn didn't win that game without him on Saturday.
Yeah. I mean, so I, as a former coach, and I mean, I still coach kids, but I would manage minutes, maybe get some guys a little bit more rotation minutes in that usually don't, just to get them ready, just to get them comfortable and ready for the tournament. But, it's going to be interesting to see, like, if I can't remember the schedule the last couple of games, but you'll see some maybe surprise wins because listen, at the end of the day, if you lose a game or two in the last week of conference, I don't think is going to be the end of the world. I mean, that's how strong the SEC is.
No. And before we get into the midweek action real fast, and I also got to say, I mean, again, we put the videos out, folks. As you can see, I want Luke to pick at it before we get out. One more question for you before we get in our midweek selections. South Carolina 16th, Arkansas 15th, Vanderbilt sitting at 14th, Oklahoma at 13, Texas at 12, Georgia 11, Ole Miss at 10. Kentucky, one of the bigger slides. Again, I don't think they finished there, folks. I just think with the Carr, Lamont Butler, they still need Kirk Risa. I think he's kind of their dog, their alpha. They need him to come back from that groin injury. Vandy at 8, Mississippi State at 7, Texas A&M 6, Missouri, big mover at 5th for me, Tennessee at 4th, Florida 3, Alabama 2, Auburn at 1. Any other critiques here from you, Luke?
I'd say maybe Georgia a little bit. Maybe you push Georgia up to 12. But other than that, I think this is pretty spot on.
All right. Who do you like better? Do you like Georgia or Texas? If you had to pick one.
Oh, man. We talking about basketball or women?
We talk about both, man.
I don't know, man. That's pretty close. You got
in what category? Both?
I mean, that's the thing. Ooh, I don't know. I mean, that's tough. I mean, I was kind of down on Texas this year, as you know, and they've kind of surprised me. I mean, they really surprised me.
You're a little higher on Texas than I am, I can tell.
Yeah, I mean, but listen, I mean, I wouldn't put him up in the top 10. I mean, the one I'm kind of like a little bit, the one I love is Ole Miss, and you know that.
Yeah.
We've had Beard and we've had Flanagan on Big West and stuff like that. And I just really like the program. They've got some really good players. But, any other year, they should be in the top 5. But, I mean, it's so deep. I don't know about Texas and Georgia. I just have not seen enough of them. I've watched them play a couple times. I mean, Asa Newell's just a ball player.
Yeah.
Blue, I thought would take that next step. But, I mean, who knows? I mean, just who knows?
Then final question. Is it fair to say, you think right now, the regular season champion from this league is going to come from the state of Alabama?
I mean, that's fair to say. I mean, if Auburn wasn't so good this year, Alabama would be in that spot of where Auburn's on that pedestal.
Right
Alabama
now
would easily be a number 1. I mean, you look at Tennessee, Tennessee, Florida.
Yeah.
I mean, Tennessee was number 1. But, I mean, Auburn really impressed me with Broom out. But this is the year for Pearl. I mean, this is his legacy year.
You've said that ever since I've had you on the show. I've always repeated that. Yeah,
you're
right. From a postseason tournament standpoint, this is his legacy year.
Yeah, he's a good coach. He's a great coach, but he's not Mount Rushmore. He's not, Bill Self. He's not, some of these other guys. Great coach. I mean, he did well at obviously Marquette, did well at Tennessee, but has he been to a Final Four yet?
Oh, yeah, won that year with them, 19. But since then, he hasn't made it past the first weekend.
Yep.
So that's kind of the issue from that perspective a little bit. It's like outside your Final Four run, you haven't been past the first weekend, even before that. I mean, that's just a fact. Like, it is what it is. Like, that's why, like, when I tell Auburn fans, like, look, like, both Alabama and Auburn have both been good. Like, since Nate Oates has been there, it's really not that comparable, the success for both teams, if you want to be completely honest.
Yeah. I mean, listen, they're both great programs.
Yeah.
And I think what Bruce Pearl did in the offseason, bringing in Pettiford, bringing in the kid from what's his name from Georgia Tech,
Miles Kelly.
Miles Kelly. I mean, he brought in, Brome came back.
Yeah.
I mean, that is team.
Denver Jones has gotten better. I think Chaney Johnson's one of the more improved players. You're right. To your point, Luke, they're a puzzle team. Like, it's kind of like Alabama has more talent, I think, and has a higher ceiling.
Well, Mark Sears, I mean, is just undershadowed by, Cooper Flagg and, some other guys. I mean, Mark Sears is a ball player. He's like a silent assassin this year.
No, you're right. No, you're 100%. But let's get into this week's picks. Let me pull it up for us. Here we go. Starting tomorrow night, and I'm just going to tell folks, the opening lines, according to our buddies over at FanDuel, now they may have changed here in the last hour or two since the last time I looked, but when I was preparing some of the show notes, all 3 of tomorrow's games have the same exact line. It's 8.5. So let's kick it off. South Carolina at Georgia, 7 p.m. Eastern on the SEC Network. Current line, Georgia favored by 8.5. Who we taking straight up? Who we taking line here?
South Carolina's got to get a conference win.
You're like Chris Phillips. He picked them in the pick. He's like, I'm just banking South Carolina at some point gets it done.
I mean, but Georgia's 2-5 in conference. They're not. I mean, they're better.
They can't afford to lose this game at home.
No, and it's home. I think. I would probably. I'm probably going to go with the home team with Georgia.
Are you going to take Carolina in the points though? 8.5.
Yeah, I would.
I agree. You're going to have the same pick here, Luke. I'm going to take Georgia straight up.
Shoot,
I'm
we
going
have
to
it
take South Carolina 8.5. You're right.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
This is where the SEC Unfiltered Tour will be tomorrow. Chris Phillips already boots on the ground. He was at a Tennessee practice today.
Why is he wearing green Nikes?
Yeah, interesting. I need to ask him about that when I get off here. What did Rick Barnes have to say about that? Because Chris was boots on the ground. He was at practice today.
Yeah, there's no green team in the SEC.
I know. I don't know. He said it was a real overcast day, a lot of brown, and all the trees were dead. Maybe he was trying to bring some life into the Tennessee campus.
I'm going to start calling him Big Money.
We got Kentucky at Tennessee at the Thompson Bowl.
Tennessee.
Tuesday, 7 p.m. Eastern on ESPN. Current line, 8.5. You taking Tennessee? You giving up the points in the Vols straight up?
Who's all out for Kentucky? I can't remember. I mean,
Lamont
Kurz
Butler has been officially out, and Carr is questionable.
Tennessee. I think they're. Oof. I don't know if they'll win by 8.
So you're going Kentucky losing 3 straight, which I mean,
yeah,
I agree.
Man, I am waiting for Tennessee to like fall apart, and I hate to say that because I've been a fan of the Vols since Allen Houston was on the hardwood for the Vols. Love Allen Houston.
Buzz Peterson and the boys.
Dad Wade Houston, the coach. Man, I used to love Allen Houston. The point is, when they played against Auburn at Auburn, I was impressed. I'm a big fan of Chaz Lanier. We've had his former coach on of UNF, and I'm a big fan of Ziegler. I just like Tennessee, and I think that home crowd, the Pat Summit spirit's going to be there, and I think Tennessee's going to take them.
I was going to ask you, were you like? This term gets thrown around too much, I think, in college basketball, but it is true. And it was definitely true Saturday night at Neville Arena in Auburn. It was a true rock fight. Was that impressive to you, that game overall? Or again, initially I was a little unimpressed with Auburn offensively from that standpoint, but I'm like,
the defense.
It goes to show you they can score in the mid-80s, and they just didn't shoot well the other night. But it shows you in the NCAA tournament when you have to go win 6 games against 6 quality teams, you may not, as you know, you may not shoot one night, and you have to go win it and just win it out and drive in advance. Shows they can. I thought that game was played to Tennessee's style, but Auburn came out as the victor. Yeah,
I think Auburn's defense. I mean, I watched them against. Was it Houston?
Yeah.
And I mean, it was defense, running, and the thing is, it's all about the intangibles. And Auburn has the intangibles. They have everything going for them, but they have that little intangible this year. And I think, listen, what the SEC is going to prepare them for the NCAA tournament, any team that gets through, they're going to be ready because it's literally every night's a game in the conference. It's going to be who's going to be healthy and who can string some wins together. And if you can do it during the regular season, the conference tournament, and stay healthy, you got a good I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if the SEC has 2 in the Final Four.
No, that wouldn't shock me. That wouldn't shock me at all.
If you had 3 in the Final Four, that would not shock me.
No, it wouldn't shock me either. Like it's all gonna at some point. It's gonna be interesting because they're gonna have some of these teams are going to play maybe in the round of Sweet 16 because they try to like not match them up until like the Final Four or the Elite 8 unless they have to. Yep. At this point, they may have to. I mean, it just is what it is.
Yeah, they're going to have to.
No,
they're going to have to. I mean, I don't feel bad for the NCAA tournament selection committee because they're really going to have to. If there's 10 or 12 teams in, they're really going to have to spread them out, and they're going to have to really look at seeding very intrinsically so they do not have these like Vanderbilt playing Tennessee in the second round.
No, you're 100% right. Final game on Tuesday night, Oklahoma at Texas A&M on the SEC Network at 9 p.m. Eastern on the SEC Network. Again, all the games tomorrow night, as of about an hour, 2 hours ago, 8.5 across the board. The Aggies favored by Luke. Who we going with?
Texas A&M.
Texas A&M, yeah, me too. Yeah. I mean, so I'm with you. I'm taking all the home teams right there across the board. The only team we agree across the board from that perspective. I'll take A&M. I'll give up the points. I'm going to take Tennessee, give up the points. I'm going to take Georgia, but you agreed with this one too, Luke. But I'm going to take Carolina in the points. I'm not going to lay them here.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Moving to Wednesday night's action, Auburn at LSU, Wednesday, January 29th, 7 p.m. Eastern. They have not released a line on this yet, but if you want to go by any kind of percentage line, Kim Palm currently has this as an 81-69 Auburn win, with Auburn with an 87% chance of winning this game. What say you, Luke?
Auburn.
Yeah, I mean, this would be one of the more shocking upsets of the season. Not one. I mean, it would be if Auburn would have dropped this. I agree. Auburn wins that one. We'll get a line out there for you tomorrow. Texas at Ole Miss. Very intriguing matchup on ESPN2. 9 p.m. Eastern on Wednesday night on ESPN2. Currently, again, no line out. They'll come out tomorrow.
Yeah.
Ken Palm has this as a 73-67 6-point win for Ole Miss with a 72% chance for the Rebs to win this game. Luke, what do you think?
Ole Miss has to start fast. Ole Miss has to win this game.
They do.
They just have to. I mean, I know they're 4-3 in conference, 15-5. They have to win this game. And They just have to.
No, I agree with you. Look, it's as simple as that. It's like at some point, yeah, like those 3 losses like don't really hurt your resume, but at some point you got to start collecting wins. And again, I'm not saying Ole Miss isn't going to get to that 7-11, 8-10 range, which will probably check a box, lock you in from the SEC this year. But like at some point, you can't drop. Texas is playing well, like you said. You got to hold serve at home this year, and you already dropped one to another Texas team just a week ago at home. You can't lose another one.
No, Ole Miss.
Yeah, I agree. Our guy Wild Hawk says, let me pick your brain a little. What do you mean by highest ceiling when talking about Bama and Auburn? Because I think Auburn is a higher ceiling. I mean, really what I'm talking about there, I think when Alabama's playing their best, Alabama's probably the best team in the country when you talk about it. I mean, there's a lot more NBA just players on that roster, right? But I think Auburn has a higher ceiling where you have guys who in an elite level fit their role. Like they all do. Like, I mean, Chaney Johnson knows his role. Dylan Cardwell knows his role. I mean, the offense all revolves around Janai Broome. I mean, listen to Bruce Pearl. He said they didn't miss him defensively. They missed him offensively because he got better each year, more patiently. He's a phenomenal passer. I just think if Alabama is playing their best, I think just across the board, they're probably a little bit better. I think they could, like if you said both teams played their absolute best, I'd probably make, well, ceiling wise, I'll go with Alabama. That means they're probably balling at that point because you got a bunch of NBA guys. But I think Auburn's the more consistent team, the more complete team, more well-rounded every day of the week. So that's why I think Auburn is the overall better team. They've shown
who's going farther in the tournament.
I think that obviously, as you know, Luke, depends on matchups there from a standpoint. And again, I mean, I think Jay Billis brought up a good point. Do you think the way the SEC is officiated, we talked a little bit about it earlier for you guys on the show, do you think that could hurt the SEC, how physical of a league and how the refs kind of let them play it out like that will hurt them come NCAA tournament, potentially from a foul trouble perspective?
Yes.
I agree.
Yep.
And then finally, I think this is 1A, 1B of the midweek slate, depending on what you think. Kentucky, Tennessee, Alabama at Mississippi State, 9 p.m. Eastern on the SEC Network. I think for Bama to stay in the SEC championship race, I think Bama has to win this game because tell me if you agree. Look, Auburn's not, I'd be shocked if Auburn loses more than 4 conference games. Like, you can't get too far behind. You losing that game to Ole Miss at home about 2 weeks ago, forces you to go kind of win this game. If you want to go stay in the SEC regular season championship race, does it hurt your resume? No. From an NCAA tournament standpoint, it hurts. You can't go 2 games back, though, of Auburn. I just don't think you can get that far back.
This is a tough one because I've been kind of harsh on Mississippi State, and every time I'm harsh on them, they pull it out. I really like Hubbard, but I think Alabama's battle tested.
Yeah, I would.
I don't know. That's a tough one. I'm going to go with Alabama.
I am too. Interesting. I mean, did you see the whole Mark Sears stuff on Saturday?
Yes.
What do you? I saw Nate Oates came out today on his coach's show and said he had his best practice he'd seen all season. I mean, the mom came out and said something. I think it was a little bit. I don't want to say it was absolutely nothing because obviously something was there, but I think it could be a little bit blown out of proportion now with social media. I mean, again, he wasn't hurt. Obviously, you could tell he's probably. If I had to guess, this is what happened, and I could easily be wrong here. It sounded like he told Clifford Amori, Mark Sears, he needed a little bit more from an energy effort from a defensive standpoint, and said you aren't starting the half. I think Mark Sears didn't respond that well to that. I think Clifford probably didn't say anything. He got in at the 16-minute media timeout, played well. I mean, I think he ended up winning the hard hat for him with their blue collar points. Nate Oates said he wishes Mark Sears would have responded like that. So to me, it's not he wishes he would have responded like that on the floor because he didn't play. To me, it was like, I wish he would have responded to me not starting him in the second half probably a little better. So, I mean, to each his own. I mean, you could make something a little bit out of it.
Man, you've been on college football sidelines, and I've been college basketball and other college sports. I mean, you know what? The media takes a lot of things out of proportion nowadays. It's like, whatever. Let's see how I'm going to tell you one thing. He's going to be ready to ball on Wednesday.
Yeah. No. Maybe that lights a little fire on it. I think Oates knows for Bama to hit their ceiling, they got to have the best version of Mark Sears. And again, he's leading the SEC in scoring right now. Absolutely. But no, our guy, Big Pat, big Auburn fan, big fan of the show. Love Big Pat. He says, let him play football on the basketball court. And he says he's going with Mississippi State, which I can see
Big Pat. I'm not going to argue with Big Pat. A guy named Big Pat in the South. I ain't going to argue with him. But I'll tell you one thing: Mississippi State could win that game. Yeah, I mean that wouldn't shock anybody. It's just a big game from a league stand. If I was an Auburn fan, Bama loses that game.
you feel pretty good. You're 2 games back on everybody. That's why I think Tennessee's out of the race now. I was saying that going into it. They had to win because think about it, Luke. They've already have 3 losses. They only play Auburn once, so you don't get a chance to go put another loss or a loss in Auburn's loss column. You're essentially 4 games back because if you tie, you're going to lose the tiebreaker. And I mean, that's Auburn's floor to me from a loss standpoint. I don't see them losing a home game. And I don't know at this point, do they lose 4? I mean, it's almost the remainder of their road games.
How are they going to lose 4?
I mean, just for conversation's sake, before we end, again, we've gone 10 minutes, a little over. I just want for conversation's sake. Let's see. I want to see your prediction here. What games could they lose down the stretch? I'm reading your schedule. All right, here we go. LSU.
No.
At Ole Miss on Saturday. Thoughts?
Maybe.
That's
Depends
one
on what
you
Ole
could
Miss
say.
team comes out.
Oklahoma at home, no.
No.
Florida at home, no. If it was in Gainesville, I'd probably say no. Or I'd probably say yes, it could.
Mm-hmm.
Vandy in Nashville.
That could be interesting.
Interesting. Bama and Tuscaloosa, I think, yeah, it's a potential loss. Arkansas at home, I'd say no. Georgia at home, no. Ole Miss at home, probably not. I don't think Ole Miss wins that game on the road.
No.
They go at Kentucky.
Maybe.
They could. At A&M.
Maybe.
And then Bama at home, last game of the regular season.
I think they're only going to lose 3.
I agree. It's a good number to put them at.
Yeah.
They'll drop one of those road games, I think, at Vandy, at Alabama, at Ole Miss, at Kentucky or A&M. That's 5 tough road games. You're due to drop 1 to 2 of those.
Yeah. Now, let me ask you something. I want to ask you this question. I was thinking about this. Does a team from the SEC have a losing record in conference and get an at-large bid into the tournament?
Yeah, I think you could see 2 or 3. I think you could see Georgia fit that mold. I think Oklahoma could fit that mold. Texas at 7-11 may get in. I could easily see that. I think Ole Miss, Mississippi State, if they finish somehow 8-10, both get in and probably don't even lose sleep on Saturday night before Selection Sunday.
But how many games do you have to win to get in?
I think 8. If you're 8-10 this year, I think you're in.
Okay.
I think
Interesting.
8-10.
Yeah. I don't disagree with you. It's just I wanted to get your perspective on that one.
7-11, you're stretching it because of what you did in conference. I don't think Vanderbilt can go. If Vanderbilt goes 7-11, they'll be a little worried, I think, on selection because Vanderbilt doesn't have that top-heavy non-conference big win. Like Oklahoma at least went undefeated in non-conference. That's why I think at 7-11 they would get in. Probably same with Texas, maybe. But I think anybody else is fine.
I think Oklahoma that did not have that good of a non-conference schedule. I mean, they played Providence. Providence is kind of struggling.
Yeah, they got Arizona and Michigan.
Arizona, Michigan. Didn't they play Louisville too?
And they beat Louisville. And that Louisville game's aged well.
Yeah, Louisville's good. Yeah, Michigan's good, but all over the place. But Arizona's been a disappointment in the Big 12.
Yeah, Arizona's kind of the brand you look at. You're like, man, what a win. But like you said, you watch them some, and you're like, that ain't a traditional Arizona team. Like, it's Arizona, but it isn't Arizona, if that makes sense. But
right.
Let's get this off right here. But Luke, I appreciate you joining us, brother. I appreciate you joining us. Anything you want to add heading into the season? Go tell the folks where they can follow you and stuff. Again, y'all do phenomenal work. I love having you on the show. Good talk back and forth. Hear about
Absolutely.
it. Go tell the fans where they can find you.
Full Court Network, baby. LT and Sammy D1 on Twitter, and then Instagram, Full Court Network. YouTube, we've got a couple shows. We got College Basketball Weekly, which is every week. Do some topics. Actually, this week we're going to talk about Missouri and Vanderbilt, 2 of my surprise teams in the nation. And then also Full Court Press, a college basketball coaches show. We're really the only coaches basketball show. We have a new coach every week. So we've had everybody and anybody. We've had Billy Gillespie. Remember Billy Gillespie?
Oh, former head coach at Kentucky and A&M.
Yeah, we've had him. We've had Chris Beard. We've had a number of other guys. So, man, I always love it, man. I always love talking hoops with you, Shu.
Well, I appreciate you joining me, guys. All 700 of you listening across all our networks. I appreciate it. Go like, subscribe, hit that notification bell for the SEC Unfiltered channel and our buddies over at the Full Court Network. Luke, I appreciate you joining us, brother.
Appreciate it, man.
Have a good night, man.
You too, man.
Again, our guy Luke Taylor joining us from the Full Court Network. They do a phenomenal job. Fun dudes that just know college basketball. I love chopping it up with them. Real laid back, no ego, no egos across the board. Hard to find across all landscapes in this world now. But those guys do a phenomenal job. I appreciate them. But guys, that's it for today. Again, I'm sorry I took you 14 minutes over. We went 74 minutes today. I apologize. Tell your wives, tell your husbands for the ladies out there listening as well. Guys, we covered a lot today. I mean, we went around the league. Todd Golden off the Title IX lawsuit. Jay Billis says it's tougher to win the SEC tournament this year than win the NCAA tournament. Totally agree with him from that perspective. Top 25 college football players heading into 2025. We picked that On 3 article apart. D1 baseball, college baseball poll came out. A lot of SEC teams, about 8 or 9, if I remember right. Again, we're going to have Chris Phillips, Harrison Fant carry into that one. Again, go check out Harrison's interview with Tony V, the Tennessee Vol manager there, defending national champs. Then we got our guy JBR on. Real basketball heavy show there, but sprinkled in with a little football. Sorry, we cut out there for a minute. But guys, I appreciate you. Again, the road to 20,000 subscribers on YouTube. Go like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. There's no better SEC entity across the board for football, basketball, and baseball. Again, we're 2.5 weeks away from college baseball, guys. Again, Harrison, Chris will do a phenomenal job with that. So it's 24/7, 365. We're about to have some big top 3 questions for every SEC team heading into 2025 from a football standpoint. So you took a little week off for unless you're Cole Thompson, week off a little football, about a week off, but now we're starting to crank that content out, guys. So again, phenomenal content across the board coming from us. But for Dave Shoemate and for all the guests that joined us tonight, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week. I will react to all of Tuesday, Wednesday night's action from the hardwood. Again, 6 phenomenal midweek matchups across the floor, across the board from the SEC. But for Dave Shoemate, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week. If I don't see you on Tuesday, Wednesday, I hope I see you on Thursday night, 8 p.m. Eastern for the next episode of Dave Talks Ball.